And welcome to Education, Leadership, and Beyond, Surviving and Thriving. It is show number 118, and thank you so much for tuning in today. We are live on Facebook and certainly a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. We're also on Voice Ed Radio Canada and going on to iTunes as soon as the broadcast is over. So thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. I am Andrew Murata, host of the program. I am at Andrew Murata 21. I want to take a moment to recognize our sponsor for today's program, and it is the Education and Leadership Journal. Let me put this. I'm working on this new format here on Be Live. So there it is. It's the Education and the Leadership Publishing Team, and my friend Dan Spanauer writes this journal, and it's great. This is the February edition. You get a paper copy each month as well as an electronic version. And just, look at this. Look at this, how many pages there are. There's stories, there's motivational things, there's things from coaches. It's just fantastic, right? And there's always like a fun story on the back as well. Dan will give us a discount, and you could go onto the Leadership Publishing Team. Here's that information right there. And punch in the code Murata20, you'll get a 20% discount. So I wanted to share that, and certainly thank you to Dan for sponsoring the program. And I had a change of course here. I have an opening statement. We are going to meet Marty Geoghegan here in a moment. Marty is a high school principal, not a high school principal, elementary principal in New England, and is very active in the Massachusetts Administrators Association, and certainly going to talk a little bit about the work he's doing there, as well as he leads the MSAAChat. And I'm fortunate to be part of that. He's just doing a lot of cool things in education, and really he's got a great attitude. He's got great hair. And and we're going to meet Marty in a moment. So I had an opening segment ready to talk about, and I wanted to switch. I'm working with some newer principals, and I'm mentoring them. And our last session is coming up here soon. And I was thinking, like, what do you do in the last session with people you're mentoring? What are some things that can leave an impact? So I really want to have some reflection exercises. So I wanted to ask those questions to you today, and then certainly we'll run some of those by Marty when we get a chance to talk to him. But when I took the 7 habits for highly effective people, they asked the question, right? If you didn't have any time constraints, if you didn't have any money constraints, if you didn't have any family obligations, you're like, what would you do with your time, right? Like, what would you want to do, right? If you had just had the opportunity to do that. And so I'm going to ask those educators that, what would they do, right? If you didn't have to do X, if you didn't have to do Y, if you didn't have mandates, if you didn't have to do something, you would have to do something, what would you do? Where would you want to spend your time? And what do you think you should be doing? And then how can you do those things, right? The second question, what about your health, right? If you didn't have any of those constraints, if you didn't have anybody tugging at you, if money wasn't an issue, what would you do for your health? Would you work out all day? Would you have catered meals? Like, what would you do, right? And then how could we do some more of those things for our health? And the last one, if they were to get a blank check, right? So a big, famous donor would come in with a rich donor. What would you do if someone offered you a blank check and said, hey, tell me what you're going to do with this money for the betterment of your school and your students? What would you do to that? Because I actually had that happen. I did have a Hall of Famer from my school come and do that. And it was cool to be able to spend the money where I felt was best. So if you're watching live, please leave Marty and I a question, and let's bring Marty in. And here he's coming now. Here he is, Marty Geoghegan. Welcome to Education, Leadership, and Beyond.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
There's the hair live in the flesh there.
It is here. It is gray. It is definitely here, though.
But it's looking good, Marty.
Thank you.
If you had to pick one of those questions to get us started, right? If you had, no time constraints, if you had no time constraints or money constraints with your health, or the blank check, which one of those questions you want to answer, and what would you do?
I think that the time constraints with your health. this past weekend, I went to a brunch that's put on by the Jimmy Fund. And I, for the last 18 years, have walked the full marathon route for the Dana-Farber Jimmy Fund walk for a buddy of mine who taught next to me at Natick High School and has been the assistant principal ever since. And he's a cancer survivor. And it really is an emotional day when you're at the Jimmy Fund brunch and they get these speakers. And this first speaker was a young man who survived cancer. There was a doctor who is just won the Nobel Prize, and he was talking about his wife who died of cancer, and he couldn't save her. And it really was just touching. And I have a couple of friends that were just diagnosed themselves. So it was one of those emotional days to really put everything in perspective of our lives and how we are doing. And it just really kind of cancer touches us all. And it's one of those things where it sneaks up on you, especially my two friends that just got diagnosed.
Yeah. So it's important that we do focus on our health and take care of ourselves. As you certainly know, it can be a stressful job. But Marty, let's for our watching audience and listening audience, why don't you give an introduction of yourself?
Sure. I'm the principal here at the Henry A. Yale Elementary School. It's a grade 4-5 building with only 400 kids. I'm living the dream here with so few students. It's just amazing. I can get into every single classroom almost every day. I get to know all the kids' names and know who they are. It's really been amazing. I was a middle school principal prior to that for 12 years. And then prior to that, I was a high school assistant principal and a high school English teacher. And so I've gone started high school, going to middle school. Now I'm in elementary school. Who knows? Maybe I'll be a preschool principal before this is through. But I just love it. And it really is fun. I respect so much those that are in secondary ed, as high school like yourself, or middle school, because as the kids get bigger, the issues get bigger and the problems get bigger, and the political nature of your job is definitely bigger. I definitely have the parents that are worried about their kids before they get to middle school, but for the most part, it really is a dream come true being here and being with these kids.
Cool. And I know you've been there a couple of years now. Marty, in terms of your leadership, what are some things that you're doing differently with the level that you're at? You were at high school and middle school, working with younger kids in a different setting. What are some changes that you have adapted?
Well, for me, it was getting to know it. That I definitely had the experience as a principal, but getting to know the elementary level, really understanding. For me, I have two kids that went through elementary school, and so you kind of got to know it as being an administrator on the outside, seeing what they're doing and getting to know those principals. But the whole reading aspect and like how important it is. And for me, I just fell in love with, and I do it all the time. I tweet out pictures whenever I'm walking through classrooms, and I'm always amazed at the way an elementary teacher, you got to find them in the class. And for me, it's 99% female, but I got to find that teacher, because she might be on the floor in a corner with two kids, and there will be 7 kids over here in a circle and 4 more kids on a table over here, and then 5 kids over here with their Chromebooks, and then 3 in the hallway on their Chromebooks working on something. And just the whole aspect of centers just really does amaze me. And so for last year, my first year, I just gushed over my teachers and what they were doing, because it just really is incredible, the chaos that they're able to kind of work in and figure out and be as patient as can be, when all of a sudden they finally try to get them back and try to do something in the front of the class, and you've got one of them tugging on their pants and saying, I need to go to the bathroom, another one saying they're feeling sick and vomiting right in front of them. I mean, it really is an amazing thing kind of like with our own wives as mothers, you sit there and are amazed at how great they are with the kids. And then you see it here with these truly caring people to try to help and support every individual wherever they are and get them to be successful later on.
That sounds awesome. And yeah, I love watching the centers. I hear you. Marty, you're very involved with your state organization, the MSAA. You guys hosted the National Principals Conference last year. Boston was a great host. Tell me, how did you get involved with them and get going on your journey with that group?
My first year, well, actually prior to that, I was trying to find a program I was in my ninth year of teaching, and I really started to think people have been like giving me that little nudge of leadership might be your thing, maybe you want to go into administration. And I always thought, oh, I just love my classroom, I love being with my 150 kids, whatever it was, big classes of English juniors and freshmen. And I'm like, no, I love doing this. But it was, no, you can make that greater difference even with being an AP or then being a principal. And so I got kind of the bug and I started to think about it. And then my buddy next door to me, Zach, I kind of talked him into doing the program with me. And it was through at the time, MSAA, which was Secondary School Administrators Association, to get the licensure and our second master's degree. And so I kind of joined it then to see how great this program was. It was through a college, but it was also with working superintendents and principals that ran the leadership licensure program. And so they just really just sucked you in because they would show up and on the program was we're going to learn about culture and climate, but all of a sudden the principal that's presenting just stood up there and he's like, I'm going to talk you through the issue I had today. I had the parent on the phone, the newspaper here, and then just talked us through and kind of ran us through this case study of what would you do as a future assistant principal. And it was just so amazing. And for them to talk about this building in Franklin, Massachusetts, houses the association. This is where we get together. This is where we talk. This is where we network. This is where you can talk with people who are dealing with the same issues that you're dealing with. You're not alone. When you need help and support, you can always reach out. And at the time, it was probably more email than anything, but email them, call them, check in with them and say, this is the problem I'm having. And so MSAA was great to kind of have all these local groups. I was an assistant principal with a buddy of mine. We would go to the South Shore of Massachusetts, underneath Boston there, South Shore AP group. And we would meet with other assistant principals in the schools around us and like in our conference. Then we would go to the Summer Institute, which was for MSAA. It's the kind of the flagship conference for us where it was put together by all the association to get some guest speakers in, but for the most part, all the sessions were run by principals, assistant principals that were in the state dealing with the same issues we were. And so I just kind of latched on as this is who I want to be with. This is who I want to help and support. Not only get that help and support from others, but be able to give back. And so that first year I was an assistant principal. My principal's like, we're signing up for this. This is what we go to. We go to the conference in July, and you're going to be able to share what you're doing, but also hear back from other schools what's going on. And so that was what I did. And then 5-6 years ago, I was getting really busy on Twitter and loving it so much. I was like, wow, I think we need to kind of start a chat to kind of keep people together, that when we go to the conference or when we have these regional meetings, we then walk away and it's like, oh, I'd love to call this person or chat about this person, but it's so hard to get out of your building and like make time for that. But if maybe there was a set time once a month, we can have 6 questions, talk about those 6 questions, discuss what we're doing, celebrate the things that are awesome. And for the last 3 or 4 years, I've called in authors like yourself to be tied to the book and connected to some of the things. So it's like a book study that we have once a month. And for me, it's forcing me to read a book every month to be ready to find the questions and search them out. And for books like yourself or the other books that I've been able to do, the questions just pop right off the page. And it's like, oh, that would make a great discussion point to be able to kind of talk about.
Yeah. And I was fortunate in September to, oh, did that sound get kicking? I was fortunate in September to be part of it. You did a great job. I had never done one before, and you really supported me through it. And kind of, I described it as, I'm a Star Wars guy. You know, you're flying in the Millennium Falcon when you're on Twitter. But then when you go on a Twitter chat, it's like you're going at light speed. And it was a great experience. Got to connect with a lot of people in Massachusetts. So, but you really did a nice job as the host. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I really enjoy doing it. It's been like a labor of love. I mean, sometimes it gets kind of tough to pencil out that time, send out the 10,000 reminder tweets that I send out the day and the days before it that it's coming up. But I really do enjoy it. And the most amazing part about it is people talk about, okay, you have this PLN and you can reach out to these people. Every single author that I've reached out to say, would you like to do this chat? It might sell your book. It might do this for your conference. It might do this. Every single one of them has been like, yes. I have never gotten a no. And every single person has been like, what month? Yep, I can do that month, and jumped right in. And some people like Jimmy Casas was in between flights in an airport, and he was engaged in the chat. Thomas C. Murray had just landed in I think New Orleans, and he was getting ready to chat. And it's that interaction and how great they are with it. And I just find it amazing because it's not every day that you can just tweet or direct message George Couros and say, listen, I just finished your book. I'd love to be able to chat about it with people. Would you be willing to do it? And they're like, sure. No problem. I just find that amazing. And it's just one of those incredible things. And I love being able to personally meet people and say, hey, it's Marty. And then I remember I did your chat, and it's just amazing. It really makes the world a tiny place and makes it really come alive that we are all in this together and we're all in this to help one another.
That was certainly a great commercial for the PLN. And speaking of PLN, and a great author and a Twitter all-star, Jay Billy's watching, and he gives a shout-out with the great enunciation there, Marty.
Thank you, Jay. Another great book. Another great person to meet.
Absolutely. And Jay is fantastic on Twitter. And his book, Lead with Culture, is a bestseller. So, Marty, you've been at different levels of leadership. You know, and good for you to have those different experiences. You know, what are some key points of leadership that you identify with, that you, no matter what the level is, you're making sure you're doing these things? You know, what are some 3 or 4 things that really identify with leadership for you?
I think it's relationships first. I really do believe in that. And I know it's like a catchphrase, but it really does work, is building those relationships with the kids, with your faculty, with the families, and just showing them that you care about them. I think that's huge, and building that trust from that relationship, that families will know that you care about their kids. Everything that you're doing is for their kids. Every kind of change you might be making is for their kids. I talk about it a bunch when I was at MSAA, that when you first show up at a school, all of a sudden the first PTO meeting, the first like school site council meeting, improvement council, you got a bunch of parents that might show up because they're a little bit nervous of, who is this crazy guy that's been doing this stuff online and Twitter and things like that? And what's he going to do? What's he going to change? And then I find it as though once they really know that you're there for their kids and for them, sometimes the PTO meetings are lacking in people because they don't feel nervous anymore. They don't feel like they have to step in and do something. Mm-hmm. It's kind of one of those catch-22s that we really want some parent volunteers, but in the end, they're feeling good. They trust you, so they don't really have to do much. So I think that relationship is huge, building that trust so that they know that you're there for them. I try to get into my teachers' classrooms as often as possible. I try to tweet out and take pictures of the work they're doing and celebrate it and show parents that this is some of the stuff that we're doing. If we just had an initiative to go one-to-one, here's what we're doing with it. And it's not that we're always on the Chromebook. No, I'm tweeting out pictures of when kids are doing work collaboratively without their Chromebooks. So that's a worry that they might have had. Oh, man, we're going one-to-one. That mean my kid's going to have screen time all day long? No, it doesn't. It just means that it was a tool that we needed. So being there and then being there for the faculty to see that I'm in there to help you and support you. It's not that gotcha situation. I'm not walking in just when I got to do an observation or official evaluation. No, I'm in there to kind of see what you're doing, be able to kind of know what you're doing so that I can also speak to it to parents. When a parent might call and say, listen, I don't know what's going on in my son's class here. I'll be able to talk to them about, listen, I was just in there the other day. I see what Mrs. So-and-so is doing. I think it's amazing. This is what I even saw, and be able to kind of speak to it in that way so that the teachers know that you are there for them, and that, again, back to you're there for the kids as well. I think that's huge. I think that kind of celebrating all those successes that we have is big, even the tiny successes that, I'm walking through classes and I might not have seen something that I want to talk with that teacher and have a conversation about. Why did you do it that way? Maybe it could have been done this way. I still snap a picture that I thought was really good and tweet it out, because it's great for maybe those parents then to have conversations with their kids about, what did you do today? What did you learn today? And not get the typical answer that I got with my own two boys. Nothing. I don't like school, just boring. That, oh, well, at least I saw that you were doing some cool mystery science experiment. I don't know if Mr. Geoghegan was in the class that you were in that exact time, but I saw that you were doing that experiment today. How did that work out? So things like that. I think it really comes from relationships being first, and then everything kind of falls under that of the trust and celebrating and really just shining a light of our brand of what we are for kids.
That's a great answer, Marty. If you're watching live, would love to hear a question or comment from Marty or I. And you're right about the importance of being in those classrooms, because when someone does challenge you or someone does ask a question, you know firsthand. You're there, you see it, you touch it, you feel it, and you know it. So I agree with you. Marty, speaking of relationships, you shared a lot about your parents. I asked you about some mentors of yours in our pre-show work, and you shared a lot about your parents. You want to just talk about that a moment, of what your parents meant to you and what they've given to you in terms of your leadership?
Sure. Your accent brings me back to my parents, because they were both Bronx born and raised.
Forget about it.
They still got the New York accent, and they kind of like the Red Sox since I've lived up here. But for the most part, they're still a Yankee Giants family. My dad was a steam fitter. Worked his whole life, and for most of my high school into college career, he was out of work just because of the way the building was going at that time. And so he really just put in his life and soul into being a union member of the Steamfitters Association, and was in New York for a while. He traveled back and forth to New York to Connecticut when they moved us out of the city into Connecticut when I was a young kid. And I'm one of 5 Irish Catholic kids. And so we grew up with that kind of hardworking attitude and spirit, and just kind of working hard and knowing that nothing's ever handed to you, and you need to go out and get everything that you want. And I was the first in the family to go to college and graduate and get a master's, and the whole kind of 9 yards in that way. But my parents were always there for me, and they always kind of supported me. And it might not have been financially, it was just they were going to see it through. And I'll never forget that I'm in my dorm my sophomore year, and my dad was realizing that I couldn't make all the money I needed to pay for school. So he showed up and he called my dorm room. And I don't know how I was even there back in the day when your dorm room phone rang, and he said that I'm over here at the financial aid office, and I'm talking to this woman Sheila, and she really likes me. So get over here to sign some papers because I got you some money. And he did that. He was one of those types of people that would do that. But he was home because he wasn't in work. He wasn't working, and he eventually ended up taking a job as a maintenance worker for a factory kind of building, and he loved it. And he worked until he was I want to say 68, and he said, I just want to work 30 hours a week instead of 40. And they're like, no, we love you, we want you to be here. And he's like, but I can't keep doing this. He's like, just let me work 30. And eventually he retired. But yeah, he's a hard worker. My mom, the same thing, just putting up with all 5 kids of us and going through it. I think I just really learned the power of hard work and the power of just caring and supporting for your kids, even when you can't give them everything. You give them what you can.
That's great. I love to hear it. We've learned so many lessons from our parents, and just love to hear school leaders talk about their parents and what they've done for them. So thank you for sharing that. Marty, another big part of your life has become running, and it wasn't something early on, but it's become a major part of your life and your wellness. Why don't you tell us that story, and how did running become part of your life, and what are the benefits that you get from it?
Yeah, as I said, with the Jimmy Fun Walk, I started doing the walk 18 or close to 18 years ago, and I would go out and just train for it. And the first year I did it, it was like, I'm in good shape. I'm 30 something. I'm like, I could do this. And oh boy, it was hard. 26.2 miles, Boston Marathon route, not easy. And when they say Heartbreak Hill on TV, it's really Heartbreak Hills. It crushes you. So I did that walk, and I realized I got to train harder. So I would go out for these 2-hour walks, and our boys at the time were very young, and I'm leaving my wife with the 2 kids after coming home from work to go out for a 2-hour walk. I think she might have thought I was going to a local establishment, but just like walking so long is really, really tough. And so then I started thinking, well, if I maybe ran, I could at least get the training done a little bit quicker. So I started running instead of walking, and that rolled into, I started doing some halves. I would then start doing a couple half marathons, one in the spring, one in the fall, to get ready for the walk, as well as doing the walk every year. And coming up in the end of August, right around my 50th birthday, I'm going to run my first marathon. So I'm looking forward to that. So,
oh, man.
It really has become something. It just really took off from doing the walk and walking 26.2 every year for cancer, and just being able to now roll it into let's see if I could do this marathon. I've walked it 18 times, but let's see if I could do one. I'm not doing the Boston, but I'm going to do, it's called, I think, Greater New England. It's from Vermont, all downhill is what they say, into Western Mass. So I'm looking forward to it.
I like the sound of that, all downhill.
Maybe it'll just pull me down the hill.
Well, good for you, and 50th birthday, and doing that, and that's great. Marty, another initiative you got going on in your school, and I like it, and I want to hear about it. Shadow a Student Day. Tell us what that is all about.
So I think 5 years ago, my buddy Brian McCann and I and a bunch of other Massachusetts principals went down to Florida for the NASSP down in Florida. I don't know if you were there, Andrew, but
Boston was my first gig.
Okay, so we were there. That was my first national conference, and we were walking around, going to the ed camps and doing like all these things. And oh yeah, we're experienced at ed camps. Oh yeah, we've done this. We're wicked cool guys. We're on Twitter. We do well. I run my own Twitter chat. And next thing you know, Dr. Neil Gupta like hands us a card. He's like, "You guys ever shadow a student?" Shadow a student? Of course we could do that. So we were like, whatever that is, let's figure that out. And then we're like, okay, we shadow a kid like all day long. So I go home and my two kids are in middle school at the time. And they're like, "You're going to stalk a kid all day, Dad? That's so weird. That's cringe."
It's creepy.
And I'm like, well, no. It's shadow them. Figure out how their day goes and really sit in a class, all classes, not just walk through and get up and go whenever you want. You're going to be like a student. And so I did that 5 years ago in middle school. I've done it 3 times in middle school. And then I presented on it last October. And one of the people in the audience came up to me and was like, "Well, Marty, how are you going to do that as an elementary principal now? You're going to sit in one teacher's classroom all day long with that same kid?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's going to be a little bit different than a middle school class of switching classes and going to all different things." So I ended up breaking it up and doing 5 kids over the course of the day. And I'm actually doing it tomorrow. I have 6 kids lined up, 3 4th graders, 3 5th graders, 3 boys, 3 girls. And I'm going to get on the bus and get to their stop with their bus stop, get on with them, come in, and then I go from one kid to the next, and just throughout the day. And I've always kind of tweeted out pictures, and it's shadow a student, all one word. And it was School Retool that used to do it, but their website looks like they might have stopped kind of proposing it. So I don't know if there's no 2020 shadow a student, but I'm doing it anyway because I love it, and the kids love it. The kids think it's phenomenal. I'll be in 4th grade lunch, and then 4th grade recess, and then 5th grade lunch, and then 5th grade recess, and bopping in between different classes. So it's just for the administrator. And I've had my assistant principals do it. I've seen assistant superintendents and superintendents do it, where just getting to know what it's like to be a student for a day and see what it feels like. And when it was presented to us in Florida, the big reason was our kids sitting too long, our kids just being bored. And what I noticed was, man, my kids move. They are trucking through the day. And I think we needed to actually slow things down. And I even noticed it last year in the elementary classes, in my 4th and 5th grade classes. We need to just peel it back a little bit because we're trying to get everything. And it probably affected my teachers that I was sitting there that they wanted to do their best lessons and have the best things kind of come across. But it really seems as though we truck through things, and sometimes kids don't get a chance to take a breath and really think about what they're learning, be able to kind of sit. And I think especially when we're in a classroom as an administrator, I think sometimes teachers get a little bit nervous that they're not doing enough, or the kids aren't doing enough, or the kids aren't making things happen. And so I think for us as administrators to reflect upon that and tell our teachers, listen, we're doing all right. Slow it down. We're doing well. You're going through everything. Let's just give these kids a chance to think about it and reflect.
I love it. I did it last year, and you inspired me to do it again. So we got some time to do that.
Yeah,
we are running out of time, though, Marty. Let's get to rapid fire here. I got the big PTA meeting here at 6:00, so I got to get back to school. Last book you read?
Collaborative Classroom by Trevor Muir. Twitter chat next Tuesday. MSAAChat, 8:00.
Cool. Yeah, give the time of that, the chat and the hashtag again.
8:00, MSAA chat, 8:00 Eastern time. Trevor Muir will be there. This will be his 2nd time. He did it the first time with his book, The Epic Classroom. He's phenomenal. If you haven't seen his YouTube channel, check out his YouTube channel. He has so many great, quick YouTube channels that you could pass out to faculty, start a faculty meeting, end a faculty meeting. Great stuff.
Cool. Last movie you saw?
Peanut butter. What the heck? The movie with the kid and the wrestling. It was so good.
Yeah.
It was definitely the last meaningful movie I saw. When
Okay.
you threw that question, I'm like, I don't know what the last, but the peanut butter dilemma or the peanut butter something, but it really was good.
Favorite place to travel?
Playa del Carmen, Mexico. We went there for our 20th anniversary a few years ago with a couple different couples, friends of ours, and they all of a sudden roped us in that we've been going every year. So in 2 weeks, I will be in Playa del Carmen again. Hopefully there's no coronavirus and we'll be able to go.
Just different kinds of corona.
That's for a different type of corona, exactly.
Yeah. Ain't no Sam Adams down there. Something that motivates Marty Geoghegan.
I think I always want to help our kids to succeed and make school fun. We got to make school fun. My own two boys do very well in school. They're a senior and a junior. And I think just education and the want for learning has been driven out of them with the push to, you got to get into a great college. You got to have great academics, GPA, and all the rest. And they're both, my senior is taking AP classes, honors classes throughout high school. And he just doesn't know what to do because school's been kind of driven out of him. And it's just, it really is sad. So he's kind of at that point where he doesn't know whether he wants to go to college or whether he wants to go into the work world. We want to tell him, take a gap year and just figure it out. But we live in a town that everyone goes to college. So he's really struggling with his own peers, telling him that they think he's crazy for not going to college.
Yeah. I hear you on that. A pet peeve of yours, Marty?
Pet peeve? I don't know. I don't know what would be a pet peeve. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that one.
You seem like you have a great attitude, so not much bothers you. That's good. Your wife and kids are lucky.
I'm sure they have some that they could pick up on me.
Yeah. Best purchase under $100 that has had a great impact on your life?
The Yeti. I love the Yeti. I walk around with water all day long. I'm not a coffee drinker. I just drink water. So this has been my savior. I dump some ice in it the night before, fill it with water, and then throughout the day, the ice is still in there. At the end of the day, I'm still drinking it, and then this little $5 handle has really worked out well to walk in the classrooms. The kids love it because every time I walk through, I end up leaving it somewhere, and then they go to try to find me at what classroom I'm in with my water bottle.
That's great. Marty, you shared a nice story about UConn and your dad in the financial aid office. You met your wife there. You happy that UConn's back in the Big East?
Oh my God, it's going to be the greatest. That was so sad to see them leave the Big East, but to see it back together will be amazing. To have the games against Villanova, PC will be awesome. I mean, we still won't have the Boston College or Syracuse, but PC, Georgetown, Villanova, it's going to be good stuff.
Yeah.
And Hurley's rolling. I think we're getting back to the Calhoun years.
What was the best, besides meeting your wife there, best experience at UConn in terms of, impacting your life?
I will say I was a post-grad, so I went 4 years as an English major, graduated with an English degree, and then went back for the master's in education. And that first summer, they had us as post-grad working with a summer school. So we had some classes, and then we had to do summer schools, like an internship kind of thing. And if you were secondary, you had to go to elementary. And if you were elementary, you had to go to the secondary summer school. So I, being like a future high school English teacher at the time, was in a kindergarten class. And again, just like I talked about before, to see the finesse that kindergarten teachers can deal with stuff. And I had a kid that all of a sudden, I feel sick, like in Parenthood, and just like vomited right in front of me, like all over everything. I stood there like a statue, not knowing anything to do. And the two women teachers that were in the room moved everybody, moved it, and I still just stood there with just the vomit like up my feet, and they moved the kid. It was unbelievable to see everything. So that was one of those experiences that the masterful teachers that are at the elementary level was incredible.
That's awesome. That's a great story. The vomit, man. You got to be quick on your feet at the younger levels, huh?
I guess so, yeah. And I wasn't. I was ready to be in an English class, and may I go to the nurse? Sure, go right ahead.
That's so funny. Marty, I believe we all have a book in us. What would be the title of your book?
I think for me, it would be I always thought about writing something about leadership in terms that the whole concept of it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and 26.2 ideas to kind of help you, because that would make it easier for me. It's like those hacking leadership or the hacking books that are like 10 hacks. I would do 26.2 different ideas on how to be a better principal and be a better educator.
That's a great idea. I'm going to challenge you as you're training for your marathon. Hey,
Yeah.
every mile you run, you got about 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes somewhere in there. Go ahead.
Probably more like 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah.
Well, cool. Marty, you mentioned about the marathon coming up here. So I'll skip to, what's a long-term goal, 3 to 5 years?
3 to 5 years, I'm loving the elementary level. As I said in the beginning, I respect so much you guys that do high school and secondary level, but I am really adoring the elementary level, and I love getting to know it. I tell my teachers all the time, I'm still getting to know this thing and still trying to figure it out. And when I'm in there, I'm really asking questions of why they're doing certain things. I want to know why.
Yeah.
And so I have fallen in love with it. There were times when I thought, okay, I'd do this high school, I'd do middle school, and then I get some elementary background, and who knows, maybe I'll jump into the assistant super position because I have all this experience, all 3 levels. But I am just so loving it. The kids are so incredible. As I said, I love kind of being in the classroom. I've been teaching classes once a month with every class, and just getting to know them has really been fun. So I see myself still in elementary in 3 to 5 years, but getting better at it.
Cool. Great answer. Marty, how can people get in touch with you?
I'm on Twitter all the time, Geoghegan with my last name, Geoghegan 22. And you can do it that way. I'm at Norton Public Schools. You can give me a call. You can shoot me an email. But always on Twitter. DM me, tweet me, and I will get in touch back with you.
Yeah. Very inspiring, Marty, and just you're doing a lot of things. And, thank you for sharing your story tonight. I thought you did a great job.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew, for having me. I love talking about it.
Cool. Guys, let's check out that MSAA chat and support Marty in there. And, let's follow what he had talked about today. And Marty, really good luck with the marathon. We will certainly be in touch again.
Yeah, and I saw Jay over there. What do I think about the Red Sox cheating? I didn't like it. Definitely didn't like it. It wasn't a positive moment for us.
He's a big Yankee fan, so yeah, they gave him a lot of fodder. Yeah. All right, we're going to sign off here on Education, Leadership, and Beyond. Marty Geoghegan, everyone, check him out at Twitter, mgeoghegan22. Marty, thanks so much, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Andrew.
All right, we're going to sign off. Take care, everyone. And bam.